Okay, here we are on Monday, and I was just about to say this is our first meeting with Pat in the spanking new year of 2023. But that'd be wrong, wouldn't it? It just
I
says you.
guess our normal schedule, our smooth schedule, got sort of mixed up over the Christmas holidays between being away, actually a bit of sickness and so on, Jude. So
And
between one
then
thing or another,
there was the times when we were drunk, So
yeah, well that as
you
well,
can't appear,
yes.
you can't appear on the earth and totally plastered.
The bottles of red wine were piling up.
Anyway, well, you're reasonably good form, Pat, are you?
Yeah, I picked up some sort of. I was chatting to a man on Saturday who says everything these days is COVID, but I think it might have been a cold or a flu,
Yeah.
Jude, on whatever day it was last week, as I think Tuesday or Wednesday. I actually went to Templemore Sports Complex, the gym, on Tuesday, and I thought, wait a minute, I have no energy whatsoever. And then on
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday, my nose started running and started coughing, and I coughed on But half the world has it, so Jude, I'm not alone.
Are you coming out of it, or are you going to still going deeper into
No,
it?
no, I'm definitely. I know, Jude. This is the last. They're Friday and Saturday. I've got to admit, it felt really rough. But today I'm feeling fine. Like
Well,
it's out the other side now.
I always say that's the one compensation about being sick
Yeah.
is when and if you start to get better, you begin to really appreciate ordinary things like
Oh,
a
absolutely.
cup of tea
A cup of
or
tea. When you're,
sitting comfortably,
yeah.
no pain. Oh, this is fantastic.
Uh,
Anyway, let's look at some of the people who've been dominating the headlines, and who better to start with than the spare. I'm referring, of
yeah.
course, to the Prince of. Is he the Prince of Wales? Is he?
No. He's Earl of Sussex, isn't he?
Oh, Sussex. Aye, he's there. The
Yeah.
Sussex.
Yeah.
I should have
I
known.
think you're going to say the Prince of Darkness there, but
Well, I'll just say this and then I'll elaborate later on, but I'll let you take first shot at it. All I'll say is, I think Harry's a bit of a slow learner. But anyway, you go ahead, Pat, and tell me what do you think?
no,
Did you watch him last night?
No, Jude, I done that. I got the last 10 minutes. I actually, says Jude, I started last night. I was sitting home. Rosie, my dear missus, and the other son went away. And last night I put on. No, it came on. By the way, Lady Chatterley's lover. I'm
Seems so
just.
tame now.
No, there was more bonking and all, but what a stupid film, anyway. By the way, I turned it off halfway. Either I'm getting old or something, but it doesn't matter. you know,
Whereas in the old days, you were looking for that book that had the
Oh,
pretty
geez, I
bits
was sat
marked.
watching. By the way, the guy who played Mellors didn't look right, and the girl who played didn't look right. And I thought, what am I watching this for? So I
Your
turned it off.
imagination's better than anything they could show
Yeah,
you, Pat.
exactly. When I read the book was so much better. Anyway, I caught
Yeah,
the last 10 minutes of Tom Bradby's, or what do you call his
yeah,
name?
that's right, Tom Bradley.
God, someone. I think Harry. I know you've got a different view, but I think Harry came across as a human being who's pissed off to a great degree, who's lived through with this institution as the royal family that is totally dysfunctional. I think his mother's death is sort of, and I think he's reached the stage saying, "I don't give a shit," and so on. Now, he is getting piled on, and I mean piled on by all the British establishment.
Hmm.
And you could argue like he got 100 million from Netflix for the and
Mhm.
this book is going to recommend more. Now, I don't know how much he inherited from his mother's estate, whether he's doing it for money or not. But as exposes go of the dysfunction of the royal family, it's riveting stuff.
Well, I watched it, and Tom Bradby, before it started, said, there's some jaw-dropping stuff in this. Uh,
Yeah,
I thought it was more like yawn-inducing. Now, maybe it was
yeah,
the way that Harry delivered it. I just thought his voice was kind of monotone, and he never, his expression never really changed throughout. Now, you might say that's commendable and, detached and so on, but I found
yeah.
it tedious.
Yeah.
Several things struck me with regard to it. One was the idea of Prince Charles calling him darling boy. I
Yeah,
thought that was lovely upper crust,
yeah,
darling
darling boy,
boy.
my darling boy.
I
Yeah,
would never call any of my children, my three sons, darling boy. But he
yeah,
said something now that I can't quite get clear. He said he didn't. The reason he went to America and where he is now is that he didn't want history to repeat itself,
yeah,
which seemed to suggest that he didn't want his wife to die the way his mother had died.
yeah.
Now, what is he saying about the way his mother died? See, I'm not
Well,
clear.
he seems to, and I agree with him to a large extent. Jude, not back in the day, the tabloid press in particular, but the media in general, Lady Di, like quite literally, Jude, she used to go to the gym and she couldn't even take a shower in the gym on the basis that she couldn't trust there wouldn't be hidden cameras.
Hmm.
Can you imagine the invasion of your privacy? That you'd sort of reached the stage that, even after going to the gym, she had to go back to her own house to have a shower after a physical exercise. Everywhere she went, she was expecting to see cameras. And so on. I think the royal family did a deal with the devil. They started playing all these games with the media for their own reasons. But then it became absolute sort of toxic. And I think Harry believes that his mother was sort of almost hounded to death by the media.
Well, you
That
see that.
everything she did, the
Hmm.
relationship with your man's Dodi Al Fayed and all this sort of stuff. And I think he wants out of the glare of the publicity. But then here's the contradiction. He does a media interview with Oprah Winfrey. He's done 100,000 or 100 million deal with Netflix, and he's written a book. So you tell
Yeah,
me.
please, I want to be anonymous. I don't want people to be
Uh,
focusing on me.
yeah, I don't.
You did this.
I want to have a private life. Yeah. All right. Look.
Yeah, I mean, that just
Well,
blows a hole in that whole notion
yeah.
that he wanted
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
decent life. He
Yeah.
said that, well, you see, at times he seemed to be, he said he drove through, or rather he was driven by that wonderful Irishman, some wonderful Irishman who drove him through the tunnel at the same speed that Diana's car went through it. And
Uh,
there was no reason, no reason for crashing. There was no big bump or anything.
yeah.
Which seemed to me to be implying that there was dirty work at the crossroads. In other words, what
Yeah.
many people believe that there was people in there that made the car crash and killed her. Uh,
Yeah.
Now
Well,
he sort of
Fayed,
hinted at
yeah,
that,
the
but he didn't
conspiracy.
bloody well follow through.
No,
Like,
and because Jude, I think he thinks that if he comes out with that one, that they will go for him full. That here he is, no, total conspiracy theorist, and he's lost off his rocker and so on. But Jude, there were serious questions. Now, I don't know a lot about it, but remember there was a famous white car that was never found again. The
mm,
fact that your man, the driver, was allegedly had 6 pints beforehand,
yeah.
that they were being pursued at high speed and
Mm,
all that sort of
mm,
stuff.
mm, mm.
Jude, you can make a conspiracy theory out of almost anything.
But you see, in the one breath, he is sort of saying that, she was deliberately killed. There's hints at it. But at the
Yeah,
same time, he's saying, like, the press, the media were to blame. Well,
yeah,
I don't believe anybody believes that the media wanted to kill her, get her in there and kill her. They didn't. They wanted certainly to take photographs of her dead, maybe, but they didn't want
uh,
to kill her.
no, but
If she
I
was a,
think that what he meant that her mental or psychiatric equilibrium was totally gone off balance because of the way she had been treated. I think
oh,
that's what he's saying. She was hounded to a degree that she had no privacy, that her mental health suffered
yeah,
a lot because of this, and that and then of course afterwards when she died, then that sort of pomp and ceremony of the funeral, they
yeah.
were sort of expected to act
Aye.
like with like little boys, no
Mm,
tears and all the rest of
mm,
the old
mm,
stuff up her lip
mm,
crap. Like
mm.
Jim, he was what age was he, 11 or 12, whatever
Aye, he was
age.
only a youngster. You sort of feel
Yeah,
sorry
and
for
this
him
is her
then.
mother, and apparently, whatever her faults, and I don't know, I've never met the woman, know nothing about her, but apparently she was a very warm and friendly mother. So,
Mm. But
there you go.
but Pat, when somebody is bereaved like that suddenly, and especially if you're a child, you
Yeah,
can get caught up in, and you could see that you can get caught
yeah,
up in the crowds mourning for her and
yeah,
shaking hands with you. They were smiling. It helps. It actually, I would argue that it probably helped them to get through that terrible event,
yeah,
because they're distracted by these people, and
yeah.
it's all that show.
But
Um,
Jude, but maybe then in the silence, I always say that it's not the day of the funeral.
mm, mm,
It's the
mm.
next day when
Aye,
it's all over and you're
aye,
sitting
aye.
looking at a wall, Jude. That's the day it
Mm.
hits you.
But you see, Pat, there's a couple of big holes in his notion that she was being hounded by the press, whether his mother or his wife, because he's asking for more attention.
Yeah,
He has been steadily upping his own profile, as you say,
yeah,
with the Netflix series, with all these interviews, and now this book. I mean, the guy wants publicity for whatever reason. He wants it at this stage, but he wants it in his own terms. The things he told us, or we heard about from the book, that
yeah,
he was anti Camilla marriage, him
yeah,
and Willie, as he calls him.
yeah.
That annoys me. Well, I wasn't surprised by it, but it's an odd world, I think, when children tell their parents who they should marry. You know,
Yeah.
I think
I,
Charles should be allowed to marry
Jude,
whoever he wants.
your mother dies and your father's getting married again.
Aye,
I don't think
yeah,
there's a step family on earth that says I want you to marry somebody else other than my mother.
exactly, exactly. He spent time talking about his beard. I mean, for God's sake, do I want to know about him wearing a beard? He told us about him fighting with William. Well,
Yeah.
he said the man pushed him and he fell and broke the dog bowl. I thought he
Uh,
said the dog something else, but it was the dog bowl. And, I mean,
he shot him in the
it's
bowl.
so damn trivial. He says that Camilla briefed against him to the press,
Yeah.
and that prevented him from continuing a life of service. I nearly fell off my chair when I heard that one.
Yeah.
A life of service as a member of the royal family. He said the press were the devil, essentially, and he even found time to tell us about the loss of his virginity.
Aye.
Look, and he sort of excused himself. He says it was only a few lines. Frankly, I don't give a damn. You know, I really don't want to know that. More than I want to know how you're.
He left out the main one. He claims to have killed 25 Taliban.
That's right. Did he talk about that? I stopped actually after an hour. I couldn't take it after that. Did he? Did he talk about that? The 25.
No, that's what I've read about. And
Aye,
it's like there's one stupid admission, every which way, because every Looney Tune now in the Taliban, anytime, any place they get an opportunity, they're going to try and get him.
But
and
Pat,
a lot of these people will be very determined.
Pat, don't you think that they would have known that he was part of the British Army or the whatever Air Force there?
Yeah.
And wouldn't they go for him if they got a chance in any case? I don't think they had to wait to be told that he killed 25. So he could be lying through his teeth, you know.
Of course they could.
There's some doubt.
They were chess pieces. How does he know he killed 25? You know,
it just seems a little
by
bit.
the way, isn't it a great recommendation for the British Army? You go around sort of putting notches on your gun on how many he killed.
Yeah. Well, of course, the brass in the British Army are denying this. They're saying, "Oh no, we don't do that. We don't even count them. We just kill them." But you were saying that he had dealt some terrible blows to the British monarchy. Do you really think that this might shorten the life of the British monarchy?
Well, no, Jude, let's recap here. I started out not watching The Crown, no interest in it whatsoever. I am a Republican in the sense that I believe in government of the people, by the people, and for the people, not some hereditary, ridiculous royal family, a bunch of idiots because of their. No, and I'm not having to go at any particular family. You know, I put on a shut up, Jude.
Come on, you're fitting your breath into the winters.
But a family put on a pedestal because they happen to be born. It's an accident of birth. That's ridiculous. It should be some sort of meritocracy. But anyway, no, but what I'm saying is, or what I'm thinking is, these revelations show how dysfunctional the thing is. And do you really seriously want to look up to this sort of a family? You know, I don't. Look, it's not anti-Brit and it's not anything that, but I think it's insane. I really, genuinely do. I think the whole concept of hereditary royal families is insane. And why anybody should doff their cap, any normal person should doff their cap to anyone else for no reason, is beyond me.
I agree. But I mean, if you're talking about doffing your cap, I mean, if President Higgins came into a room, a lot of people would be sort of wetting themselves.
I would treat him with utmost respect, but Jude, I'm not going to go sitting and sort of fawning all over him.
Well, it might be difficult. Anyway, the point is this. I think this is not so much about whether or not there is a royal family, leading the country, as it were, but it's a question of the publicity. In the 50s, late 50s, the royal family opted for bring in the media. Let us show our lives as a family. And now they've got to a stage where it looks like, the whole thing is backfired on them. By letting in the press. The press is asking for more and more and more to the point where all the flaws are magnified.
Exactly. You know, when way back when the press was deferential and you could sort of control, there was about as attack-minded as sheep. But hey, suddenly along came Rupert Murdoch, and by God, the dogs were unleashed then, big time.
Yeah, yeah. I would have much less sympathy, however, for Harry than you would have, Pat. I just think he's out for his own purposes to do what will benefit him most and make him a lot of money and make him a celebrity and so on in the
Yeah,
States.
you
And
could well be
in
right.
doing so, he's damaging his family. And
Yeah,
maybe he doesn't like him, so it's up to him.
yeah. But Jude, the question I asked you in our wee preamble was, "What's Harry's game? What's his motivation?"
Well, I think two things. One, making money, making huge money, and he is making huge money doing this. And the second thing is he's working out some of the things that he really hated. Like he didn't like. Obviously, it's very easy to see that he wouldn't have liked Camilla, and he's making her the one who got into bed with the devil. Was the very
Yeah,
expression he used.
uh,
And other members of the family that have pissed him off. So the two things, pretty good combination. Vent your spleen and make money at the same time. Sounds good to
yeah.
me.
Can't
Would you like
argue.
that, Pat? If you could vent your
Yeah.
spleen, you make tons of money.
If somebody
Oh,
offered me 100 million to spill mine out,
nice,
come
nice,
on.
nice.
Yeah,
Okay, let's leave that unseemly thing, but actually it's linked to it in a way because you're talking there about the British establishment, and Saul Campbell is a bit cheesed off. Saul Campbell, of course, was a great full back for Arsenal and also for Spurs, I think, wasn't he?
yeah,
Yeah, played for
yeah,
Spurs as well. Really good fullback, massive player. But a sad man. I think he's
yeah.
hungry for a little scroll or medal or whatever it is you get that makes him a member of the British Empire.
Uh,
What do you think,
yeah,
Pat?
I thought it was funny last week, Jude, when they announced the honors list, and it was, and he came out and said, "I am an icon." By the way, he was a centre half, not a full back. Doctor Collins, in a sense, I remember he was a very good player. He was the
Was
first
he not
black
a
player.
fullback?
No, he was a centre half.
Oh, is he? Oh,
Geez,
centre half. Oh, that.
he was he was too
Fullback,
he
centre
was
half.
too big to play as fullback. Jeez, he's about
Well,
6'4". Can you imagine a wee winger? He'd run past him every time. But anyway, he
centre
basically
fullback, I would have called him. Anyway, well,
anyway, the whole thing about Jude, I think there's something really sort of, what would you say, pathetic when somebody comes out and says, "Look, I didn't get me gong and it's terrible," and so on, so on, so on. And they give it to four women from the British team, that ladies team, and so on. And I am deserving of it. And I am, Jude, what? Why don't you just shut up? You know, like David Beckham, he called them a crowd of, you can figure it. It starts with a C in 2017, that he didn't care about his United. Apparently, David was now. In fairness, David shut up this time. He I was thought he was a shoe in this time because he spent 13 hours queuing
ah,
during the for the Queen this year. So everybody thought, oh, there's our golden boy, and so on. And so he was bypassed as well, but he's kept his mouth shut. But anyway, Campbell, I thought it's funny, Jude. Humbleness in people has a lot to recommend it. And
yes.
see, arrogance and whinging, not attractive traits. Why didn't he just shut up and sort of, like, by the way, in fairness, one point he does make. By the way, he made 9 points about where he should have got it. But one point he does make that I totally agree with. Of those four women on the team, and by the way, I'm not disputing that they didn't deserve it,
Yeah, yeah.
but his record is far, far superior to theirs in
Couldn't
terms of
agree
achieving.
more. Couldn't
Like
agree more.
he was a member of the Arsenal team that went the whole season unbeaten. He was
Mm,
the first black player to score a goal for England. He
mm.
was the first black captain of a team in English. He has fought against racism, and I think he does a lot of charity work.
Uh,
But Jude, when you have to praise yourself for,
That's exactly, you put your finger on, Pat. If
yeah,
you may well be deserving of praise,
yeah,
but once you ask for it, you're dead.
you're dead. Absolutely.
You've twisted the whole thing.
Uh,
You emerge as something pathetic rather than
yeah.
somebody
It's like Trump,
deserving of
Trump, and
honor.
Trump. I know more about the building regulations than any man in New York. I know more about the tax system. I am the greatest businessman of all time. You're going, you're bollocks. That stuff. Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I was reminded of the best answer ever. I even wrote it down because I should commit it to memory. It was when they offered an MBE to Benjamin Zephaniah, the poet,
Yeah, yeah,
and he wrote an article about it in the Guardian, I think it was, and it went like this. This is a bit the key bit of it. He read what they'd sent him, saying they were going to offer him an MBE, no OBE, and he said, me. I thought, OBE, me? Up yours, I thought. I get angry when I hear that word empire. It reminds me of slavery. It reminds me of thousands of years of brutality. It reminds me of how my foremothers were raped and my forefathers brutalized.
Yeah.
Now,
No.
there are words of truth. And
Uh,
the independence of a man who would say that, and admittedly, he's singing a tune that I'd, harmonize with, but
uh,
he really said what really should be said by more people, I think.
one thing that the British school system, our education system, doesn't teach is their history. Their history is appalling. By the way, Eddie McAteer, too, remember the Nationals leader?
Yeah, yeah.
Apparently, somewhere about 1970, some flunky from the Home Office came to, or whatever it was, came to Eddie's house and knocked on the door and said, Mr. McAteer, I'm here on behalf of the British government to ask, would you accept an honour from Her Majesty, a member of the British Empire? And Eddie apparently says, what empire? And closed the door.
Very good. Well, of course, Eddie was smart enough to know that if he was to receive that, it would be the
Aye,
kiss of death. I mean, consider
absolutely.
what sort of status does that woman who was briefly the leader of the SDLP, what
Aye,
status does she have after
well,
not only joining the
not
House
at
of
all.
Lords, but
No, once
she was shown
uh,
swearing the oath.
yeah.
Wow.
And sure, look at Jerry Fitt. The minute
Yeah.
the minute he went into the pocket of the British establishment, like he was just, he became a risible, a figure of fun. He
What do you
was,
think happens with people like that? Do they start out with good ideals and then get
of course
tired,
you do.
or do they
Dude,
never have them?
it's the most, what would you say? What's the word? There's not a word for it. It's not inviting, but the old arm around the shoulder, the old gin and tonic in the club, and all the rest. It's inducing. You're
Corrupting.
almost corrupting. Corruption. You're corrupted psychologically, and you know that you're part of the one of us, and we'll look after you, and all the rest. It's very sort of I know invitational of that's not the word I'm thinking of. There's a word I'm thinking of
Mm.
where you're sort of arm around the shoulder
Uh,
into the club and you're looked after. You're sort of seduced. It's
mm.
very seductive. That was the word I was thinking of.
Uh, 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 well, you
And
wonder
and then,
how
by the way,
strong their
then by the way,
principles
you
would
lead
be
your
when
own
they could
people.
be so easily
Say sorry,
seduced. Sorry, Pat, go ahead.
no, and saying you're leaving your own community. I am name dropping a wee bit here, but I was at a dinner one night when Brian Field was there, and somebody I can't remember in the Catholic community got an OBE, and I remember what he called him. Brian Field made a brilliant point. He says that's like somebody, in a corral. You're trying to put people in, and then you sort of yank one person out. And that sort of and it's sort of saying, well, look, they took an OBE. No, they're accepting our system. Why can't you do it? And he says it's seductive. It works that way. And
Pat,
there's
I'll
no.
give you I'll give you a little task now.
Yeah,
I think between now and next week, I'd like you to count up the number of secondary school female principals in Derry who have
yeah.
received, letters ending in an E.
Quite a few.
Yeah, I just
Quite a,
it's actually striking. It's very
yeah,
striking about Derry in
yeah,
particular. I can't understand that. I do
yeah,
think women. I know why my sister, for example, God be good to her. I said to her, she said to me, if you were offered a place in the House of Lords, you're not taking it. I says, not in 100 years. And I says, what about you? Oh yes, of course I take it. So I don't know. Okay, let's move on from that. I'm still with Benjamin Zephaniah all the way, and poor
yeah.
old Saul, God help him. He needs to maybe sit down and have a check of his conscience. Memories, you're asking me. Memories of
Yeah.
2022. Pat,
Yeah.
I can hardly remember what I did last week. Never
Aye.
mind what I did last year.
No, I sat down and said we didn't discuss it, right, Jude? I suppose the COVID restrictions were lifted, right? Basically,
Yeah.
after 2 years, that was pretty big. The Queen died. So had
Uh-huh.
three British prime ministers in the space of of 5 or 6 months.
Mm.
Uh, Russia invaded Ukraine. What else? Sea levels are rising at a rapid rate.
Hmm.
Latin America is going left wing.
Rangers,
Uh,
Rangers were beaten twice.
Aye, protests in Iran. So it was sort of a strange year, And I was saying, like, really, Jude, what I'm really interested more way I put it all in, like, do you see Starman coming back
Well,
in
let's stick
2022?
with 2022 first of all, and then we'll go on
Yeah,
to that. All right. My memories of 2022 are scant, to be honest with you. But here's the three things. One of them personal, the other two more general. No, two of them personal. One is the May election, where Sinn Féin became the biggest party. I thought that was momentous. Unforgettable. Unforgettable. The second would be, and I've talked to you about this, I went to the sort of graduation ceremony for my daughter becoming a psychiatrist. And I was full of, pride. It was just swelling. My head was so swollen that I had to get out the door.
So
the third thing was, and this will bring your blushes to your face, I'm sure. I said, another hugely enjoyable year of podcasts with Pat+JUDE. That's the truth. That's the truth. Yeah, come on, you're supposed to say something now.
I'm sure. Like,
I'm going to make a Saul Campbell of me.
I'm overwhelmed here. I'm thinking about getting rid of a wee hanky. No, Jude, thanks very much. I'm very appreciative. No, Jude, no, I was thinking on. I'm such a warm and cuddly person. I was thinking on the big issues, not me and you.
But, what could be bigger than us?
None bigger than us. But no, Jude, Jude, the number of people have mentioned these podcasts, has been growing quite considerably in recent.
Definitely.
So I thoroughly enjoy them. And by the way, they're a great way of passing a damp Monday afternoon.
I'll give you an example, Pat. It sounds a bit weird, but my dear brother who died had a stroke, and one of the things he found was he couldn't swallow. So they put in a peg where it was fed through the side in a bad story. But I remember thinking the horror of that, apart from the pain, apart from the fear of death coming on, there was the fact that your day couldn't be punctuated by the rituals of pouring a cup of tea, having your cornflakes, having your dinner, having a drink in the evening. Those things help us through our days. They break them up, like the way full stops break up a paragraph. And I think the same thing, for me anyway, same thing applies to our podcast.
Yeah.
I know we inflict a lot of mayhem on the world and leave a lot of people depressed, wondering why they watched us. But if Harry can do it, we can do it.
They can do it. No, Jude, I suppose 2022 was a strange year, Jude, I think me and my dear missus were chatting the last day, and she thinks there's a legacy of COVID that we'll never quite get over. She says people stop. Jude, the number of people who've called to this house the past year, I think I could count in one hand. Really? Years ago, Jude, there'd be there'd be people calling in, there'd be neighbours calling in, sons, daughters, and all the rest of it. But because of COVID, people stop. The other thing as well, like, look at the changes in their society. Now, it's not down to any COVID, but I remember, and I've mentioned this a million times at this stage, even around Christmas, remember all the handwritten cards and letters and so on and so on. Dude, I think we could count, if we got 20 Christmas cards this year beside of it, a couple of years back, in the 1990s, we would have got maybe 200 or 300.
Well, I think there's two things different things.
I know they're not.
One is the way we communicate now, and electronic cards and all that stuff. But the other thing is, it wouldn't be. Well, I know you're a very sociable guy. I'm quite the opposite. I would say. I would say that we see fewer people coming to the house than we did, but we never did see many. But I attributed the fact that there was sort of a tapering off of people coming to visit. Age. The people that you're friendly with are a bit older. It's a bit more of an effort for them to, get into the car and come and see you, and vice versa, of course. So, it's a stage of life. You get to a point where, your notion of interacting with people in terms of them coming to you or you going to them, it begins to thin out completely.
And of course, you have to keep your that you, by the way, that you are not unfriendly to people. You get so into such a routine. So the last thing, Jesus, there's Mary from next door, and how you doing, Mary? And you're going house.
How do you feel, Pat, when the phone rings?
I'm not using the expression. I'm going off.
That's very bad.
Myself can we get married here?
Myself and my friend in Canada years ago, we used to have a system. We said, listen, if I'm ringing you, I'll let the phone ring once. I'll hang up, and then I'll ring again, so know it's me. So that's what we did. Otherwise, we wouldn't answer the phone.
Hey, there's that. I'll let you go now. In other words, get the out of. This is the short version of a very long story. When I was a very, very young journalist, I left. I was up to my mother's house in Letterkenny, and I got me dinner, and I left and went back to work at 2:30. Now, for some reason, I came back up at about 5:30. I had to call in for something other. My mother had been on the phone when I left at 2 o'clock, and she was still on the phone at 5:30. And I said to me, my brother who was there, he said, no, no, she hasn't left that phone. I said, not even to go to the toilet. He said, no, no. She was chatting to one of her friends. Now, Jude, that is the difference between maybe a way of years ago and maybe females. Like, Jude, when I'm on the phone, Rosie, my dear missus, says, she says, you're absolutely bad manners. And right, okay, see you now, cheerio, bye. But Jude, I'm not wild fond of the phone, so maybe that's got something to do with it.
It's a funny thing. There's a whole area to be explored there. For
Yeah,
example, one of our children, when he contacts us, he doesn't do it by the phone. He does it with one of these Facebook things,
yeah,
face to face or whatever. It's very interesting. At first, I found it putting off. Now I find it much easier. And I
yeah,
find there's an intimacy there, and like I'll give you an example. He's coming to see us sometime
yeah,
inside the next month from the States,
yeah.
and one of my other children was saying, "Oh, that'll be great. She haven't seen him since must be 3 or 4 years." And I said, "No, I know I saw him. Oh yeah, it was 3 or 4 years. I had seen him the previous week,
Uh,
literally.
exactly.
I think that makes a difference when you actually see the
Yeah,
image.
but hold on, Dr. Constant, me and you started doing this podcast, what, 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah.
It was at the start. It was well awkward looking at you. You were sort of looking at yourself on the screen because you'd never seen yourself. Now I don't even notice, myself on the
Uh,
screen. I don't pay any attention.
well,
You, know,
I really enjoy
I
doing
think
myself,
you've
Pat.
got
I find
Hollywood looks, but anyway, that's still here.
Okay, let's move on before you cough your guts out.
Yeah.
2023, looking forward. What are you hoping for, Pat? I
But
mean,
the reason I was asking you earlier on, because one of the big things was the Sinn Féin thing in the north,
there's
and
only
the
3 minutes, by the way.
I know it. So I'm sort of wondering the reason I asked you because I thought, will 2023? I'm sticking local now. I'm forgetting about the rest of
Yeah.
it. Do you think Stormont will be returned? Do you think there will be a Sinn Féin first minister? Do you think there will be a deal in the protocol, or are we now in a period where something major is coming down the track?
I think there'll be a deal done on the protocol. I think that the DUP will, be told, "Oh, you're the wonderful person that really solved this for us." So there's a part of me says that it won't come back, but I say it will come back because I think the DUP are hungry to be in the public eye. They
Yeah.
quite like the idea of being big shots in a small pond here. So I do think it'll come back. As with regard to Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael becoming one party, I don't think so. I think they're too
Hey, Jude, hold on, Jude. I know I'm interrupting you, but
yeah.
can you tell me the difference right now between Fianna Fáil and Fine
There's
Gael?
no difference at all, except that if you put the two together, then you have only got one party.
Yeah,
People are very reluctant to do that. I
yeah,
remember the time of the merger with NUU and the Ulster Polytechnic. Oh God, they couldn't. The idea of giving up their identity. Oh, desperate.
yeah,
I didn't give a monkeys, but an awful lot of
yeah,
people did.
yeah.
Okay, let me move on very quickly. You asked a question about closer cooperation or so on in the United Ireland, or even prior to United Ireland. Do you think that will happen?
No, just no. I just heard this morning, Letterkenny, which is 20 minutes up the road.
Yeah,
It's one of the most overcrowded hospitals in Ireland
yeah,
today.
yeah.
I'm listening non-stop to what's happening in Northern Ireland and
Yes.
the NHS, and I thought, someone there's a hospital in Letterkenny and a hospital in Derry and so on, and you'd think maybe if they sort of had integrated them, meshed them in some way, we could have a proper system for these border regions instead of two separate people going their own way.
But Pat, the thing is this: in 2020, the
Yeah,
Minister for Health in the South agreed a memorandum of understanding between the Irish government and the Northern Ireland Executive for
yeah,
working together to combat COVID.
yeah,
There's all sorts of schemes where people go to Gelvin, for example,
Yeah.
children's heart treatment down in Dublin.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it, but I think the politicians are afraid to go full on. They're
I
afraid
will.
to have
That's the
United
term I was looking for.
Health.
Full on.
Terrified,
Not,
terrified of that.
not sort of selective thing.
Okay.
When they dovetail, if you're living on money shown, just go to Yalton Galvin.
Okay, Pat. We'll have to leave it there. Any final
Leave
words
it
of
there.
wisdom? No?
Not at all.
Not at all.
See
No. Me neither. No, I'm as stupid as you are. Right. Good luck. Thanks,
Good
Pat.
luck, Sid. Bye. Good luck.